Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to the Celtic Junction Arts Center seminar. This is a special collaboration with Irish Community Services. So we get to meet them. Of course, they have immigration services, citizenship classes, social services, and youth and family programs. My name is Natalie Nugent. I am the executive director of Celtic Junction Arts Center. And we are here in St. Paul, Minnesota, right in the center of the Twin Cities, serving the Irish and Affinity Irish community in our 15,000 square foot building, which is of course shut down right now, but you can see behind me. Are we on me? Yeah, we can go there. That we have this beautiful library. We have a collection of books. That's one of our biggest programs is the Owen McKiernan Library. We feature concerts. Right now, of course, all of those are online and live streams, so stay in touch about those. We just released 19 classes for our Irish College of Minnesota, and those stretch across the departments of Irish language, history, literature, and of course the creative arts. And then we also do outreach, and that's what brings us here today. Our outreach is something that takes us not just outside of the Twin Cities, around the country, and even across the globe, and connects us with different partnerships, with different community centers, so we can find out who we have to service and to work with in this amazing Irish world that we have. And it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today from the Irish Community Services. Michael Collins has been the executive director of Irish Community Services since 2015. He has a degree in political science from St. Xavier University and a master's in international relations. And he'll be speaking with us about a lot of the immigration and citizenship services that we have. Next, we have Mr. Paul Dowling. He's the Director of Social Services with Irish Community Services. He has an undergraduate degree in social science from Maynooth in Ireland. He's worked in residential and training services for those with developmental disabilities, has a master's in social work from Galway, and is the licensed social worker there in the state of Illinois. And finally, we have Grace Odumosu. She's the Youth and Family Engagement Coordinator, born and raised in Dublin, Ireland. She immigrated to Chicago in 2014. Her background is in theater in Dublin and Chicago. She works with children and young adults in the arts for a long time. Since she was 16, she holds a BA in acting from the Dublin Institute of Technology and a master's degree in drama therapy at Maynooth. So we are going to go into our panel. You can see everybody here is attending from different areas. Even Grace is coming to us from Dublin, Ireland herself. And I'm really looking forward to you guys sharing what you do. One of the things that really surprised me is how little I knew about Irish Community Services, and the fact that you're not there just to look after folks in Chicago, that you're actually there to serve the entire Midwest area. As a matter of fact, the entire consulate area. So it's been a great pleasure to learn more about you. And with that, Michael, as Executive Director, I think we will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity for us to talk about our work. You're right. We do cover a large geographical area. We cover the consular regions of both the Irish Consulate in Chicago and the Irish Consulate in Austin, Texas. So our remit kind of spans about 19 states, ranging from the Minnesota-Canada border in the north to the Texas-Mexico border in the south. So we do provide a lot of remote services, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to connect with different communities throughout the geographical area. So we really do appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. One of my job as the executive director is I also run the immigration program here. So our immigration program is structured in a few different ways. And it's evolved over the years. Our main programmatic component consists of immigration legal clinics. These provide free 30-minute consultations for individuals to speak with an immigration attorney, troubleshoot any questions they may have, and potentially get paperwork filed on their behalf. So we do have running consultations. As of now, they're all being held remote, but even before COVID, we did run remote consultations on a regular basis. You can speak with the immigration attorney via Zoom, via Skype, or over the telephone. We do have a telephone conference. We do even sometimes consult folks in Ireland through conferencing them in. So our legal services can really run the entire geographical area without hindrance. And so upcoming legal clinic dates, I'll just announce them in case anybody in the community up there in Minnesota is in need of immigration assistance. We do have legal clinic dates on the 20th of January, the 3rd of February, the 17th of February, the 3rd of March, and the 24th of March. So again, just get in contact with us. We'll provide our contact details at the very end of this. But if you are in need of immigration services, our legal clinics are a great option, and they cover a wide array of issues. So they can, our legal clinics can cover things from work visas to family-based immigration, to adjusting onto a green card, anything J1. We get a lot of J1 inquiries. So that's kind of the main staple. That's our main component that has existed for many years in our legal program. Additionally, we had taken up a new citizenship program. This is based primarily on U.S. citizenship, and this consists of kind of 3 components, right? So we like to make folks aware. So there's the outreach component. We do a lot of outreach, updating folks on policy issues, administrative changes to the citizenship process. We also run citizenship educational classes. Our next round of classes start on February 2nd, and they will run every Tuesday through the 2nd of March. And that's a great opportunity if you are a green card holder eligible for citizenship to come learn about the exam, learn about the interview process, prepare yourself for the citizenship application. It can be a daunting task. We get a lot of inquiries about what's involved, and it can be overwhelming if it's not something you do on a regular basis or you're aware of. So those citizenship educational classes are a great opportunity, and I encourage anybody who's thinking about citizenship to get in touch with us and to register for those classes. And then we also are running, we do a series of kind of webinars, and these are based on a series of topics. So folks who wouldn't necessarily have a specific question that they wouldn't necessarily want to register for our immigration clinic or register for our citizenship classes, we do host webinars kind of just to inform folks of different policy changes and just to see if that sparks interest or if it's something that would affect them or their friends or relatives. Our 2 upcoming webinars are taking place. The first one is on the 25th of January, and that is specifically talking about the citizenship changes. USCIS in November of 2020 announced that the citizenship exam will be changing. So if you filed your citizenship paperwork after December 1st of 2020, you would be under those new rules, and that it consists of an expanded citizenship interview, an expanded citizenship civics exam, and we really want to make folks aware of what those changes are, what to expect, and how it might affect them. So that is what that webinar is on. We also are hosting another webinar. One of the more common immigration questions that we receive is on family-based immigration. So how do I get my spouse over, brother, sisters? How do we sponsor my parents, my relatives? How can we unite my family in the United States? Those are one of our more common issues that are brought up at our clinics. So we wanted to host a webinar on that topic just to troubleshoot a few basic questions for folks and make them aware of potential options, what works, what might not work, what's involved. And that webinar is taking place on the 15th of February, also at 6:30 p.m. The Citizenship Changes webinar is also being held at 6:30 p.m. on the 25th of January. In addition to kind of our direct legal work, what we have been doing since COVID, we've been running an emergency response fund for folks who are experiencing hardship, who aren't eligible for local forms of relief, have lost employment, and are really on hard times. So we've been running that. There's an application process involved. So if folks kind of meet the criteria, or if you just want to inquire to see if you do meet the criteria, we strongly encourage you to reach out because it is there for folks in need. Finally, we do, on my end of things, we run Irish services. So we do get a lot of calls from Irish Americans or Irish citizens who would like to renew their passports, apply for a first-time Irish passport, apply for citizenship for their American-born son or daughter, or folks who want to go through the foreign birth registration process and apply for Irish citizenship through a grandparent. So we advise on those. We've created a series of YouTube videos that you can find on our YouTube channel. that walks you through those process. But certainly if you do have any additional questions on how to become an Irish citizen, how to apply for an Irish passport, or how to renew an Irish passport, we assist with those as well. If you're applying for an Irish passport and you're based in kind of the local region here, we're able to witness your passport. That can be one of the confusing aspects of applying for an Irish passport, is the witnessing. It's not necessarily something that we do here in the United States for American passports, but ICS can witness them. And then finally, we do have a part-time chaplain who can provide counseling services and occasional prison visits where it's needed. So if folks are in detention, or if they're being held for whatever the case may be, whether it be an immigration detention or some sort of a criminal offense, ICS does act as a conduit and assist with consular cases. We work very closely with the Irish consulates, as I said, both in Texas and Chicago, on these issues, and to make sure that the folks who are experiencing hardship in a detention fashion, or are experiencing potential deportation, et cetera, we do work with the Irish consulates and with a series of attorneys to make sure that that individual gets all the information they need, and that we can help to the best extent that we can. I'll provide our contact details now, but I'm sure it'll be at the end of the presentation as well. If you're interested, if you're experiencing any immigration issues, you don't have to be Irish as well. We do have a Spanish-speaking immigration coordinator who does help us with some of our Spanish-speaking population who comes to us. But if you are experiencing immigration issues, if you are thinking of applying for U.S. citizenship, if you are thinking of applying for an Irish passport or to become an Irish citizen, we do strongly encourage you to reach out to us. You can reach us on our office phone, which is 773-282-8445. Additionally, you can email us our generic email, which will reach all employees, including Paul and Grace, who are about to speak here in a minute. And that email is info@irishchicago.org. I think that more or less kind of covers the immigration program. Natalie, if you have if there's any questions or anything like that, I'm happy to answer them.
One of the most important things that I was thinking of that you actually addressed just at the end there is that you're not there just to serve Irish people. You're not there just to serve Irish descendants or people who are even interested in Irish things. You're there for anybody who's looking for these services. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who calls us, we do not discriminate in any way. Language barriers can be a factor. We do have folks who speak English and Spanish. So if your native language is beyond English and Spanish, we would probably have to provide a referral. But yeah, certainly no discrimination at all. Anybody from any community can contact us and avail of these services.
That's something I have to admit, I didn't know, first of all, that you guys provided these services. And then secondly, that this isn't about being Irish. It's not a closed service, that this is open, that you service all the communities within your area, and how important it is for people to know that. One of the things that I was considering is family immigration and how much of an issue that must be. Have you seen a lot of impact over the last 4 or 5 years with changes in immigration? I know Chicago is a hotbed for people trying to help with immigration rights. Is that a big part of what you guys deal with too?
Yeah, we do. So anytime there's changes to immigration policy, we usually try to inform the community of what those changes are and how they might impact our community. There's been, obviously, with the Trump administration coming into office, there's been quite a few changes. The main one being public charge. So it actually has become slightly more difficult to sponsor a family member to come to the United States. You have to meet a series of requirements that weren't there prior, or they were, but they were there to a lesser extent. So yeah, we do a lot of kind of policy updates, updating folks on new regulations. And then, and we do advocate as well. So like, as a 501c3, we're not an advocacy organization. We can't really do lobbying, but we certainly want to make sure that folks are aware of the issues that our constituents are facing, and we do make we do put out kind of policy pieces to make sure that not just our constituents know the policy changes and how they might affect them, but the legislatures and folks who make the decisions are aware as well of what's happening on the ground, and how to maybe steer them in the right direction and making better decisions for our community.
You guys have such an active and interesting community down in Chicago. It's been a real joy to be able to engage and see all of the things that that are happening down there, particularly in the discussions about immigration rights, the different people I know that work down in that area. Have you guys any particular issues that have come up with the population that you're serving with the immigration of Irish people, or difficulties with deportation? Are there things that have tripped people up? Like, what are the most common problems that you're finding that you're having to help or service with?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said before, family-based immigration is one of the large things that we see. However, when you apply to sponsor a family member for a green card, or for them to immigrate to the United States, there is a certain financial threshold that you need to meet. So if the American citizen sponsor is not the breadwinner, if the immigrant is the breadwinner, that can cause issues for their application. So we see a lot of folks who would meet all of the qualifications to bring their family member over, aside from the financial sponsorship, and that can really delay an application. Since COVID, obviously the travel bans have been a big thing that we've been focusing on. This didn't really happen prior to COVID, because folks can come and go. There weren't as many closures of the USCIS facilities, which of course delays applications again. But it makes it harder that Irish folks are not able to come to this country, even to visit, even to kind of have consultations and things like that when they're in the States. And then, there's a few different options that folks might have, especially if you're getting married to a U.S. citizen. You can go down the fiance visa route, or you can consular process, or you can adjust once you're here. Adjusting once you're here is only advisable if that applies to your circumstances. But there's an array of things that can impact each individual circumstances. So when you're speaking with a client, it's immigration is never one of those one problem fits all. Everything is unique to that individual and what has happened in that individual's life, what their professional background is, what their family circumstances are, what their income is. So yeah, it's quite a complicated and daunting task for a lot of folks who are trying to come through this, which is why I think this services is so important that that we do provide for folks.
Absolutely, it sounds complicated and daunting, and I'm so glad you guys are here to answer these questions. I suppose one last thing that comes to mind, we get occasional questions here at the Celtic Junction. If my grandparent was Irish, can I still get an Irish passport? And some people, I think, feel that was either a rumor that wasn't true, or that the law has actually been changed. Is that something that is true? And do you feel that if it is something that will hold for a while, or is that bound to change here soon too?
So I haven't heard any rumblings of that changing at all. So if you have one Irish-born parent, then you are already an Irish citizen. So if you were born in the United States and one of your parents was born in Ireland, you are already an Irish citizen. You can actually apply directly for an Irish passport without having to apply for citizenship first. If you have at least one Irish-born grandparent, whether it be born in the north or the south of Ireland, you can apply to become an Irish citizen through the foreign birth registration. That process can take between 12 to 14 months. And then once you get your certificate of citizenship, it's like an FBR registration form, you can then apply for your Irish passport. So you can apply for Irish citizenship up to having one grandparent born in Ireland under certain very, very rare circumstances. And I want to highlight very, very rare circumstances. This is in the case of Olympic athletes, things like that. You can apply for special circumstances where you can apply for Irish citizenship through a great grandparents, but that is, you have to meet very, very particular circumstances. But the rule of thumb is if you have one Irish-born grandparent, you are eligible to become an Irish citizen.
Well, thank you. I think that might be one of those things that's on the mind of a lot of Irish Americans and a lot of the very wide diaspora that we have here. I appreciate your time on that. Thank you so much, Michael. I think with that, Grace, Paul, do you guys have anything to add to that before we go to Paul? No,
so. I think
you guys
Mike covered it all.
Of course, this is exciting because this is it's so nice to hear someone with so much knowledge and so much background be able to get into the details and say, we do have the resources, we do have the support. And I know you guys have heard it a million times, but I have to say I haven't. And I think a lot of our folks out here maybe didn't know that they could reach out and get all of this, this really amazing detail and support and wisdom and function. So we'll make sure that we share all of this information at the end too, how you can get in touch with Michael with the services they provide. But meanwhile, that is not all that they do. There is so much more. And with that, I'll actually turn it over to Paul Dowling.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you so much for this opportunity this morning for us to bring our two communities together. Like you mentioned, your community is our community. You guys fall under our geographic region. So you're already our community, you guys just don't know it. So with the social services element of things, and I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, there's probably somewhat less opportunity for us to come together because a lot of stuff happens geographically and is tied to geographic regions, and everything's a little different state by state, as opposed to our immigration services. So immigration is, of course, federally organized, so there's a lot more overlap. But let me share the screen. You guys can see that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. So I'm going to talk about the social services, which are the programs I manage. I will say we are a community organization, so there really is an element of social services across all of our programs. There's a lot of overlap in what Grace does, what Mike does, what I do. It's really all founded on community work and social services, but I'll speak specifically about the programs that I do. So we call it the Community Support Program, and that changes all the time. It's a fairly dynamic collection of programs, I think, that changes sometimes depending on interest we get from the community and also needs that arise from time to time, I suppose, that are subject to change. So our senior group is exactly as it sounds. It's where we bring together older members of our community. We meet in two different locations here in Chicago, one on the north side of the city and then one out in the southern suburbs. So we come together in the spirit of community, and our focus there really is education and culture. So we would very often have speakers, outside speakers, come in who would either talk about an area of Irish culture, whether it's Irish history, Irish music. We do performances, and then we also do a lot of educational programs. So we might work with local healthcare providers, local legal providers that will come in and speak specifically to senior-related issues. Just before COVID, and I feel like I could divide everything into pre and post-COVID, but just before COVID, about 18 months before, we had initiated some memory programs, again, focusing on an older population. Memory issues well, they are an issue, I suppose, for a lot of that cohort. So we were doing new programs that specifically engage people with mild to moderate memory issues. So we're bringing people together in small groups and participating in all kinds of activities that are thought to be helpful for staving off further memory loss. We also do some individual case management. So that's a smaller portion of what we do. So that's where we work with individuals or families who are experiencing some kind of crisis or extenuating circumstances, homelessness, family issues, healthcare crises, things like that. Mental health initiatives, again, that's something, the last couple of years, I'd say probably the last 3, we've kind of shifted our focus a little bit. We used to try work very intensely with a small number of people. And what we try to do now is place more emphasis on working a little bit more, maybe superficially, but with larger groups. So we started branching off into doing a lot of community educational campaigns and referrals. So partnering with experts in specific fields, whether that's memory loss, whether that's mental health, and trying to connect the community members that need that service to the services that already exist. So we've done several mental health initiatives over, I'd say, the last 4 years. And then the last piece of the social services programs, or my programs, is a student program. So we work with Irish social services students. So they'll be students who are currently enrolled in social services programs at Irish institutions, and they come to us for anything between 12 to 16 weeks placements, and it's part of their college. So they get college credit for that. We generally take 2 per year. I'm supposed to have one start next week. It'll be this funny hybrid thing where they're actually doing a placement in Chicago, but they're based in Cork. So we'll see how that, a real opportunity for innovation, I think, is what that will be. Why won't I do have another slide, but oh, there we go. So there we go. These really just, again, summarize what the programs I just talked about. So the senior group program, connections with our memory care program, the memory enrichment programs for seniors, that was connected to a community education campaign. So we were using the Irish radio shows, the Irish magazine here, our own website, social media outlets, to really try educate the community around memory loss and the signs of memory loss. Here's what you should do, speaking to somebody about memory loss. So throughout the whole year, we had an article in the paper, we had a monthly slot on an Irish radio show, and each month we would highlight a different memory specific area to try really teach the Irish community about memory loss and where they can turn to for support. There's the individual case management, the mental wellness initiatives. During COVID-19, we sort of revisited the mental health piece, and we worked with a local, well, he's local to, I think, Laois originally, but local here in Chicago now, who does a lot about mindfulness, wellness, diet and exercise. So we developed a series of videos with him, which we're going to actually start recycling now, which is the great thing, as you know, Natalie, from our chat before this. Once you have the video, it's in the bag. You know, it really extends the shelf life of it. And then there's the Irish student program, which was the last. And then what I did want to mention briefly is, of course, we talked about geography and how that can restrict us in some ways, about working together as two kind of communities separated by many, many miles. But I think what COVID has taught us is that there are all kinds of opportunities for us to come together using technology. And we're really trying to, so with the senior groups, obviously, technology and seniors, it's a little more challenging because they wouldn't have worked in workplaces where technology was a big part of what they needed to do. So they're a little bit more removed from technology, but that's not to say that they can't use technology. So really what we've been trying to do is harness that power. So focus on the positive side of having to do all of these meetings, our senior group meetings online. And we've decided that we're going to invite everybody, everywhere. So we're calling it the open invite. So really, we reached out to groups all over the world, all throughout Ireland, Britain, Australia, here in the States, and asked them to join us for our senior group programs, which are all online and probably will be all online for God knows how long. But I would like to invite you and all of your community, seniors or otherwise. We don't check IDs on the way in, so if they're and whatever you decide if you're a senior. I'm not going to tell you if you're a senior or not. But we'll be meeting twice monthly via Zoom from now until whenever we can meet in person again. I have a schedule. It's online. That's the other thing I will mention. We're having some website issues. So it's not always the best place for the most up-to-date information about what we're doing. I would encourage people to sign up for our newsletter, which they actually can do on our website. And also like Facebook is where we're kind of most active and where you find the most relevant and up-to-date information. But I would encourage you, Natalie, and all of your community to share this with your seniors or anyone, wherever they may be, Minnesota, St. Paul, wherever. And I think that's me. Yes.
I have a couple questions, but the first thing that comes to mind, obviously COVID changed everything. There's before and after. What are the most, what's the most COVID specific challenge that you've come up against in doing the social work that you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I don't know if this is specific to the Irish community or not, but what I've really realized since COVID came and we couldn't meet is just how social, like our entire community is based on social, like it's getting together, whether it's music, whether it's funerals, whatever it is, like it's physical proximity. And of course, with our senior groups, that's the only way we've ever done them. So, 4 times a month we do a senior group, and it's about getting together. It's about hugs and handshakes and actually sitting across the table from one another, and cups of tea. And it's really been hard to engage the seniors, the same number of seniors, by going online. We did quite a bit of research when all this happened, and actually Mike had a lot of foresight. He was like, we'll be back in the office in a month. Mike was like, no, we won't. So we actually did quite a bit of research trying to figure out, like, what do seniors need, I think, first of all. And we did find that most of the seniors were fairly well, like their physical, I suppose, basic needs. They all had access to food, or neighbors who would get them food, their medications and things. But we're really trying to figure out how to engage them and how we could, again, utilize technology to do that. And I was surprised that I think the barriers that existed around technology weren't necessarily the ones I would have initially thought of, which were like, I just don't understand, I can't do it, or I can't, I don't have access, I can't afford a piece of equipment. There was a lot of people who just didn't seem, they just thought it was beyond them. I think, like, I don't have an interest in it now, and I don't know if that's rooted in like an intimidation. But I found it hard to encourage a lot of the seniors to try. But we got quite a lot of resistance there. So, I mean, the seniors we're able to engage with now, and again, so much of what we do is about just social. Like, we really focus on, like, it's as important in different ways than, like, your very basic needs. Like, it is a basic need, coming together as a community and sharing that time together. So for me, and part of the frustration, I think, was there was a lot of seniors that just, for whatever the reason, and I don't know if maybe you can get into the psychology of it too, just didn't feel like it was an avenue they wanted to pursue.
Did you feel did that change over the course of time? I think we all thought this would be a month or 2 or 3. Now, we're all facing the prospect of year plus. Has that changed? Have you seen willingness to jump in and give that a try as people realize I do need something, because this isolation is hard for everyone. I think it's hard at all ages and at all levels. It's hard for the children, of course, that we see, hard for ourselves. We use the faculties we can. Have you seen that change over the course of the pandemic?
I can't say in terms of attendance for our online senior programs. I think it's been pretty steady from the beginning. I don't think it's really wavered up or down. Again, I think you have that core group of people who either were already starting to use the technology, so like had some familiarity with it, or had that particular interest in it. And I will say the last senior group we did before we broke sort of for the holiday season, we did the Christmas party, and that was our highest attended so far. So I had considerably more attend that, and I don't know, we had like Santa came, we had the Consul General as a special guest, we had some prizes. So maybe it's maybe I'm just not offering them enough in terms of maybe I need better bait. But we're trying all the time to think of new ways of engaging people. And again, that's back to the open invite. We thought maybe that's a way of engaging more people here that they'd be interested in connecting with, or sharing something with the Irish community of London, the Irish community of Sydney, and the Irish community of Minnesota. So we're trying all sorts of things. We're tweaking.
Wonderful. Along the line of the issue with seniors, and of course you guys deal with mental health and memory loss, with the isolation, has that really been something that's uniquely compounded? How are you dealing with that right now? And then, of course, what are you spoke about other resources. What are the resources that you bring people to?
Yeah, so there's 2 specifically. So and I imagine there's a branch in Minnesota. So there's NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They're a national organization, and they have a pretty big outfit here in Chicago, but they are in different areas. So sometimes when I get a call, sometimes we'll get calls from consulates about people in Texas or far flung places who are having mental health issues. I always try Google if there's a local NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. That's my first port of call, because they have a crisis line that's kind of manned all of the time. They have a great database of services in specific communities. So they like figure out what's going on, they'll look for a zip code, and they'll try to do those connections. In terms of memory loss, the Alzheimer's Association are incredible, and they're national too, but their national office is here in Chicago. But they too also have a 24-hour crisis line that's staffed by clinicians, so they're all social workers or counselors. So they're the two resources that I will always kind of point people towards. And then a lot of what we've been trying to do is be more proactive. So again, a lot of the stuff we do on mental illness, mental health is all around education. So we don't do a lot of, we don't provide counseling to people. So if it's somebody experiencing a mental health issue or an addiction issue, we can't provide that sort of counseling in service or in-house. So a lot of what we do is education and outreach. So we try to be a little more proactive. From everything I read around mental health, they're expecting this COVID to actually have a significant lasting impact. I read a lot of stuff around kids. They were very worried about developmentally how they would do, missing this time in school, missing this socialization. Seniors, of course, who are sort of marginalized for a bunch of different reasons all of the time, were impacted by this. They're a population that are already a little bit more isolated, so then this was compounded. So we've been trying to focus a lot on by partnering with mental health professionals to do videos and try to engage and remind people. I think a lot of what we're just trying to do is remind people that it's okay, that this is a really, this is not a normal situation. This is not how we live or supposed to live or want to live, and just remind people to kind of check in with themselves around their own mental wellness, and that it's okay. And we really try to let people know we're just here. So although we don't provide in-house mental health counseling, sometimes all people need, and I've had several calls actually in the last couple of months, they just are like, they don't know what to do. Like they don't know who to call. It's just the chat is what they find useful. And again, have those phone numbers. I always have those phone numbers available for NAMI. Sometimes it's a specific issue, like if it's substance abuse. I think a lot of people, domestic violence is another one we've really been trying to pump out there over our social media the last couple of months, like resources for that. And so a lot of what we've been trying to do is get ahead of the curve, and I think just share the information that's already out there.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. Of course, I know you guys all work together. We have 2 questions from our audience, and I'll actually use the first one to liaise to our next part of the program. And I'll come to that last one as a question to all of you, because I'm not sure who might want to field that one. And it's actually, I suppose, the first one more of a comment from Anya McCormick. It says, I have really enjoyed Grace's podcast where seniors are interviewed by young people. So valuable for all. Interviewer, interviewee, and listener. Thank you so much. Grace, that is the perfect time to liaise over to you. Will you go ahead and take it away?
What a great leeway into Grace. Hi, I am the Youth and Family Engagement Coordinator for Irish Community Services. And so I guess we'll start with the podcast. That is something that came out of COVID. So one thing to be thankful for is that we have the Irish Memory Box. So the Irish Memory Box is a podcast, an intergenerational podcast where the kids interview older people, older members of the community. So it goes out once a month on the 29th, usually around of each month. And it's one kid, or the one I just recorded was 2 kids interviewing one older person, and it's just basically a way for people to share their stories, for people to solidify their memories and talk about what life was like when they were younger, so the kids can know how school was when 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever it may be, or what types of games they played, or what life in general was like, or how much freedom they had, or if they had what games they played, if they had TVs, stuff like that. It is actually one of my favorite projects that I've ever worked on, because I get to man the podcast. I get to learn so much from all of the people who are the kids and also the older people. The most recent so if you want to listen to the podcast, you can listen to it on wherever you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those podcasts spaces. Or if that's not your jam, you can also go to our website and you can listen to it on our website. It's on the first page, like when you type in our website, and just listen now. And I think there's like 7 or 8 episodes up there already, and they're short. They're like 20 minutes long. So very easy to just listen to when you're, cooking the dinner, or, going for a quick stroll, and learn something new about these wonderful members of the community. Also, if you want to be involved in the podcast, if you have a kid who wants to do some interviewing, because it's also like it's great for the kids to be able to have a voice and feel important and feel like their questions are valuable, and that their voices are valued by other members of the community. So if you do have a kid who wants to be involved and be on a podcast, because who doesn't want to be on a podcast, you can just email me. It's grace@irishchicago.org. And also, if you have a family member, or if you yourself want to, solidify some of your memories, then feel free to reach out also. I'm always looking for more people to interview, because the more memories that we solidify, the longer that our community lives on, and generations to come will be able to just Google or whatever. Who knows what it's going to be like in 50 years, but they'll be able to Google their family member's name, and this podcast will pop up, and learn something new about a relative from however long ago. So yeah, that's the first thing that I do. The second thing, I guess, is so before COVID, I was doing playgroup, which happened every Wednesday. It was for people in our community to come together, caregivers and younger children to come together and just be together, and kids played, and the adults had tea and coffee and chatted, and it was just a real time for connection. We formed a great little circle of people to connect with, and experience our kids like growing up together and learning new things and growing, and there were some babies who started off tiny, and now they're crawling and walking, and it was a great space, and hopefully one day will be again a great space for caregivers and toddlers. But obviously with COVID, we haven't been able to have in-person playgroup, and so I still wanted to be able to connect with these people, and provide some kind of service, some kind of respite, some kind of relief, some kind of connection, maintain the Irishness for them, and also just for the kids to be able to see me, because I was a person that was in their life every Wednesday, and then it was just gone, and that was something that was obviously really hard for kids, because they don't get it. So it was really important for us to maintain a connection. And so I came up with the story time online. So every week, 2 weeks, um, I would release a story time. So it would just be me reading a story, an Irish story, or a story about, when it was Pride. We did a story about different family makeup. We did some stories about different people being Irish and not necessarily looking Irish, and different stories. And I always wanted to have like an Irish twist on it, or just to kind of remind people about being Irish and what that means. And so I would also do like teach them a word in Irish, like an everyday word, like bed. Today's word, we're going to learn bed. So the word for in Irish for bed is laba. And just keep the Irish connection with the kids. Um, so that was the second thing. And then the third thing that I work on was working on was um, a youth group, and it's a youth group for kids, teenagers with intellectual disabilities. So I'm an actor and a drama therapist, as Natalie mentioned. And one of the areas that I worked in before I moved to Chicago was with people with intellectual disabilities, and I worked creatively with them. And I got to see the benefits of being creative and how that can have a really positive impact on their lives. And so it was something that was really important to me because I didn't see any kind of Irish group for kids with intellectual disabilities, specifically in Chicago, where we are. I didn't see that, and so I figured this would be a great space for us to give these kids who don't already have a space their space. And I used the skills that I already have, and it became a creative space. So we would do drama, we did Irish dancing, we did art, storytelling, and we were doing all that before COVID happened. And then obviously COVID happened, and no longer be able to meet. But one thing that, again, a good thing that came out of it is now, like Paul was saying with the open invite, is that we're able to reach more people. And if there are kids in Minnesota that have special needs or intellectual disabilities, they can now join in with the Fáilte group. So we haven't we're hoping to start it back up in February. We did it online on Zoom from September through to December. We had a body percussion class where we worked with a guy in New York, and he taught the kids all different kind of ways to use your body to make music, which is so important for everyone, but specifically for people with special needs, to learn how to use your body to make music and to make noise that can be quite calming, and it can have a good impact on them regulating themselves and regulating their emotions and their feelings. And it's also really fun to learn how to make different kind of rhythms and also different sounds and stuff like that. And then we did Irish dancing. It was all done through Zoom, and I had some great teachers who came on board to help out with this. It's a really important class, and so I'm really hopeful that in this next semester that we can get some more people from all over, from wherever, who may be looking at this and say, oh, I have a kid who has an intellectual disability who would love to learn Irish dancing, or who would love to learn how to do body percussion, or who would love to learn Irish stories and do some crafts, and just take an hour out of their day that is just specifically directed towards them in a safe space. I mean, as safe as Zoom can be. And yeah, that I think covers me.
That is amazing and wonderful, and I love it. You guys, I suppose one of the first questions that I have is back to the podcast. What is the relation? Is there any relationship between the child and the senior person that you choose? And if not, do you find that they engage in a really personal way? What are the age ranges? And I love that little kind of mutual discovery. What's that magic quotient? How are they connecting?
So it varies. Sometimes so I've done a grandmother and their a grandchild, and I have done people that didn't know each other, and both times absolute magic happens. Both times there's a connection that is, they're just connected in the space that is a shared space. Like they're both of equal balance. This person is asking a question and this person is giving them their answer, and both feel validated by the experience. And then there's a conversation. So the kid may ask the older person a question like, oh, what did you want to be when you grow up? When you grew up, when you were a kid, like, what did you want to do? And then the older person gets to say, okay, well, can I ask you, what do you want to do? And so then there's a really great conversation that comes, that to witness it is, I wish everybody could just, watch these interviews take place, because it's so beautiful to witness. Yeah.
I think one of the beauties that I've seen, and we've been very blessed to see in our community, is that engaging with multi-generational people is so incredibly enriching. And I think that the Irish culture, the Irish sensibility of, and maybe it's part of that storytelling sense, or maybe it's just a talkative sense. The arts certainly bring that out, but that multi-generational connection is incredible, whether it's through Kaylee or through storytelling or through the shared music. It transcends all those ages, and it transcends all those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it like that, that's a big part of Irish culture, back in the day, like grandparents and were a huge part of the grandchildren's lives, and going down and down and down. Like, a lot of people would their grandparent would live next door or just up the road, or they go there after school. Now that kind of doesn't really happen so much, because people are moving away, and just life is taking people in different directions, and people are busy, and people have things to do. And so the Irish Memory Box brings everybody to that point of, okay, let's actually connect again, let's reconnect.
Well, I love that. I found, for us here, early childhood programming really was so good for my children growing up, but also a lifesaver for me as a young mother, because it's very isolating having children. And I'm thinking of families right now who are doubled down and isolated. And it's not just the children, but perhaps the families who are raising them, they can engage in different ways. So for story time, as you come back, we'll make sure that we share all of that stuff. I'd love to attend your story time. That sounds just wonderful. One of the things that strikes me the most with what you do and what you say is, while it's so specialty, working with the youth with the intellectual disabilities and giving them a place to experiment and to be creative and to use their bodies or minds or voices in a new and different way, is something that is so essential right now, because they don't have the normal resources that they have. And that's one of those things I think you sound very uniquely situated to. My background too is theater, Grace. And I think you think, what are you going to do with a degree in theater? But the whole point is you can actually do anything, because you tapped into the arts, which connect body, mind, soul, spirit. You can really speak to so many levels, so many ways to people, and especially in that particular need. I absolutely love it. Well, we'll make sure we connect our community here to everything that's going on there. I want to make sure that I get this question, and then also make sure our audience can see. We've got Irish Community Services, the website, the email and the phone number up in our chat here. But the question that I want to just open up to the panelists, and you guys can decide who's going to answer. Is there information or assistance for those of us who are US citizens interested in retirement to Ireland? I am of Irish ancestry, but only through my great-grandmother, so citizenship seems to be out of the question. She must not be an Olympian, from what we have heard. So I'm not sure who might be willing to field that question. Who wants to take that?
Sure, I can take it. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you plan to retire in Ireland, there is a retirement scheme that you can avail of. You do have to meet an income threshold, however. I believe it's $50,000 or 50,000 euros. I'm not quite sure which currency they're going off of, but you do have $50,000 per individual who's retiring there, and you can get essentially a retirement visa for Ireland. But there are like income thresholds that you would need to meet. So if you have a pension, for example, that exceeds that dollar amount, you should become eligible, and then it's really just a matter of working your way through the administrative side of things and getting everything in order to get the visa necessary. but yeah, there are options to folks, but there's stipulations to those options, and you would have to meet those in order to qualify.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, and sorry, just on that, if you have any follow-up questions or if you'd like exact information, just shoot us an email. We're happy to. I can send you the details of that visa, of the regulations, and of that, of the retirement scheme that does exist for U.S. citizens in Ireland. So we're happy to provide that info. But actually, while I'm talking, I do want to highlight a couple of things that our other wonderful panelists were so modestly left out. Paul and Grace have done an incredible amount of work during COVID to kind of connect the Irish community in a different way. And so one of the things that Paul has been doing is what's called the Celtic Magazine, which is actually run through the Irish American News. So if you get the Irish American News in Minnesota, it's a great, I encourage folks to pick it up. It's a way of really connecting, seniors in the community to one another during this time of social distancing through kind of written means. And so that is, Paul puts that together each month and does a wonderful job of it. So he's includes a little poem from the ambassador, oftentimes a recipe, a couple of games. So it is something that I encourage folks to pick up. It's a wonderful read. Both Paul and Grace have been very active in mailing out stuff to their to the folks that they work with. I know little Christmas boxes went out. Grace had sent out activity books for folks who would normally be in our play groups. And as well, we're trying to create kind of a more inclusive Irish community and highlight diversity within our Irish community to make sure that everybody can be involved. And also one of the projects that Grace is working very hard on is what we're calling the Colorful Campaign, and highlighting folks of different backgrounds within the Irish community to make sure that everybody's welcome. At our cultural events, at our, at anything we do across the Irish community. I just want to highlight those two extra bits of work that Grace and Paul have been doing, and it's been really successful.
Well, you guys are quite a team. I'm amazed with everything that you've been able to do and manage during COVID, and the resources that you've been able to provide. It's phenomenal. It's an honor to speak with you today and to help connect our community to what you guys do. So we'll point everybody to those resources. We'll give you several ways to do that. We've listed in the chat if you want to just copy that information. But if you hang on, we'll all be quiet because we've talked quite a lot, and we'll actually show you a few slides about some of the programs that are coming up really specifically. Actually, maybe we'll roll it. I might have to talk while we're showing the slides, because I think some of these are really important to show off. The senior group program. So you can join by phone if you want to. You don't have to do the computer if you're finding that difficult. Family and friends can join you with that. We can go specifically and let you know that in January, they've got a story of Ireland where they talk about adventures traveling through Ireland. You can travel from your armchair. Mental wellness during COVID. In February, they've got immigration and the humble potato. So you can look at the impact of the humble spud on Ireland's history. Irish tales and fiddle tunes, a little bit of music to get you going with some ancient legends and telling. And then in March, a St. Patrick's Day Mass. And also, if you had a stroke, would you know? Those are really important things to look at. Here's how to access the remote programs. And we will be sharing this program on our website. We'll give you links and we'll show it on Facebook. You can always use us to find Irish Community Services. If you don't remember how to find them here, there's ways to get onto Zoom. We can help also with the technology. This is the U.S. Citizenship Interview Changes webinar coming up that they are doing January 25th. We've got some panelists that'll talk about all the different things, and an immigration attorney, obviously. They've got all the resources to send you to as well. A law group if anybody's having trouble. It looks like they want you to register. You can sponsor a relative for a green card. There's a whole webinar about it, February 15th coming up, but you have to register. And they're sponsoring the relative. It's another group of panelists, so they can help you through that. There's a way to register for all of these things. And then finally, of course, we have the way to contact them. bless you all. It's lovely to see you on Zoom. I look forward to when we can actually see you again, and heading down anytime you are up in the cities in our future. We would love to welcome you to the Celtic Junction, and I'm sure we will see you again in the very near future, God willing. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Paul
Natalie.
Dowling,
Thank you,
Michael
Natalie.
Collins,
Yeah.
and Alex Sutherland with Irish Community Services, coming live from Celtic Junction Arts Center. Thanks, everybody.